I'm not really sure who invented running, but I've got a serious bone to pick with you. Anyway, first run of 2018, first run after my birthday. We'll see how long this lasts.
You've got mail.
What's this? From Life Lessons. What a horrible way to open a letter. Anyway, marginal utility. I told you I'd do it. But first, I should shower. Ugh, much better. Okay. Got a shower in. Marginal utility can be, I guess, most simply described as the benefit from consuming one more unit of a good or service. Now, generally when this is described in economics classes, your professor or teacher will usually use scoops of ice cream or pieces of pizza, slices of pizza, or some other food commodity to describe marginal utility. And it's usually a good analogy. But for my instance, I'm going to use cell phones. I'm choosing cell phones because, well, it makes sense when you think about purchases. I mean, you can talk about how a piece of pizza, eating your second, third, and then eventually fourth slice of pizza will not only start to make you full, but then make you sick. But with cell phones, it's something we think about on a regular basis. I mean, every year or two, you're thinking about a new cell phone purchase. And for me, this concept applied to that kind of just makes the best sense. Hold on. So imagine you've got this cell phone, this flip phone, and I've got an iPhone, right? If I want to quantify that in terms of the ability to order a pizza, I mean, I can do it with this flip phone. I can also do it with the iPhone, the only difference being that I have the option of maybe using an app if I do it with this one. Now, if I want to measure that in taking a video and the usefulness of the cell phone then, I mean, I might be able to do it with this, but I mean, it's going to be pretty potato quality and just generally awful. If I wanted to do it with the iPhone, of course there's better options on the market, but generally speaking, it's not going to be nearly as bad as the $10 Walmart flip phone, right? So, point being, you need to judge for yourself exactly where that scale is. Like, do you absolutely need the best of the best? It's just people outside. All right, so you need to judge, point being, you need to judge for yourself exactly where that scale is. How many, if you want to describe the best option on the market, and the bottom obviously being 0. Here, let's draw this out. All right, now, the lighting's all off. All right, let's pretend for a hot minute that this MacBook Pro adapter is an iPhone 10 because I don't have an iPhone 10. So, if I want to write this up here, let's say that this has an absolute utility, and we'll define that as utils, like a usefulness factor of 1,000. Now, if you're anything like me, you're cheap, and you don't want to buy the iPhone 10 because you don't want to pay for it. So, you've got other options. You've got the flip phone, $10 at Walmart. Let's graph this one out. Now the flip phone, I mean, if we're saying the iPhone is worth 1,000, right? The best, call it best factor. A best factor of 1,000 and a utility that matches. So we could say, well, I mean, I can maybe take a picture. I can definitely make a call. I can send texts, but if I try to do it anyway, it's not very efficient. It's pretty useless. So utility, I would say it has a utility of maybe 100. So this flip phone has a utility of 100. But I mean, let's be honest. Who really wants this piece of junk, right? You say, okay, well, what's the next best thing on the market? And so you go further down the aisle and you recognize this thing. It's still pretty junk. In fact, it's pretty terrible. But I mean, maybe now I can check the internet on it, right? And maybe I have access to my email. The best factor of 200. So now we have three phones. You've got the iPhone 10 at the top of the scale. You've got the junk phone, flip phone at the bottom of the scale at a utility of 100, which is it's pretty much useless. And then you got the still junk phone, which is basically the junk phone plus internet, kind of everything, and that's at a utility of 200. Let's go a little further. Naturally, none of those are going to work, and you can't afford this one. So what are you going to do? You're going to go further down the aisle and look for the Chinese phone, or in this instance, LG. You know what I mean. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I would say this phone is pretty good. I would give this phone, this LG 3-year-old phone that's probably, what do you think it costs? $60 at Walmart. No. $100. $100 at Walmart. I would give that a best factor 500. I'm comfortable saying that this phone is half as good as the iPhone X. So if I look at the iPhone 10 with the utility of 1,000, its price is about the same. The price is about 1,000, give or take $100, but it's not general realm of things. Now, if I look at my flip phone, crap phone, that has a price of $10. So we're way down here at 10. But for a utility of 100, that's not bad. So if this was a buy, if I had to buy this phone and I only needed to make phone calls, that's a pretty good buy. But let's keep going up the scale. I'm going to switch to blue. The still junk semi-flip phone, slider phone, well, that's going to be about, I would say, $50. But for a utility of 200, we're still doing pretty good, right? Not horrible. Now for the best factor, for $100, if I can get my Chinese phone or LG, like older Samsung, older LG phone, for $100, you can see here how I'm graphing this out. I started here, then I went to here. So our entry in our market, if we start at 0, is pretty good. By the time we're spending $100, we're getting pretty far up the utility scale if we're using 1,000, the iPhone, as our top tier. Now, let's add the phone I use on a daily basis. Thinking about upgrading, but for now it works. The iPhone 5S. I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's a pretty old phone. There's definitely better phones out there. Doesn't have 4K video, doesn't have portrait mode. I mean, operating system works, but it doesn't have a whole lot of memory. Gaming would be at best. But overall, it's not a bad phone. I mean, it's definitely not a Bionic 11 or whatever super crazy chip this guy has, but it's not bad. And at Walmart, you can get this phone for about $200. So if I look at a price of $200 and utility, I would be very comfortable saying that it gets 80% of what the iPhone X is. So if I want to add this to our graph, 80% if I'm 1,000 here for a price of $200. So if I'm looking at this, where we're going in the market, I'm doing all right. I mean, that's probably a really good deal. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, right? Let's say I do want to splurge all that money for the iPhone X. I need to spend $1,000 with a utility that's obviously 20% better than where I'm at with the iPhone 5S, but I'm all the way over here. So this curve, and this is the important part, this curve now does this. So if I graph this out, you know, it looks something more like this. So anything in here, I'm spending a lot of money, but I'm not getting a whole lot of utility. So this could be things like iPhone 7, iPhone 8, 8 Plus. All those exist in this area here where I'm literally spending $800 more to get this 20% of what this guy on top of this guy. So from a price standpoint, it's just really not worth it. So what was the point of that whole exercise that was probably very long-winded and definitely convoluted? The point was that if you think about things in its usefulness and how much you actually need versus how much you're actually spending to get there, it really kind of frames a lot of the conversation you want to be having when you're making big purchases, like cars and bikes and toys that are just generally expensive and vacations and jewelry and things for your wife, spouse, significant others, whatever. The idea is, yeah, things are probably going to get you 80% there at 20% of the cost. It's the 80-20 rule in business. It applies to a lot of things outside just this application, but when framed in that way, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of times you'll hear people say it as the law of diminishing returns. You spend a certain amount of money, you get X. You spend double that amount, but you get X plus only a fraction of what the original X was, if that kind of makes sense. And for me, that's why I don't buy the iPhone X or the newest Samsung or the latest whatever equivalent of those major brands are, right? If you look at all your major purchases through that lens, you'll find that you can have just amount of the very similar experience at a fraction of the cost and save yourself a lot of money in the process. All right, I'm done.